Hey, what's up guys and gals? My name is Nineg. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about Gilligan's Island, more specifically about what I would call the Halloween episode of Gilligan's Island. It comes from season 2 and it's called Ghost to Go-Go. Before I get into it, I want to thank all of you for your support and encourage you to watch and support my 3rd annual Halloween special. These are previous videos that I made this month so far. We are not done with the month, but the month is quickly approaching. We're going to finish, of course, on October 31st. Now, the best way to support my channel is by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Thank you for doing so. So let's talk about this episode. It's the 27th episode of season 2 of Gilligan's Island. Came out March 24th, 1966. So yeah, pretty far away from Halloween, but I mean the content of it is just perfect. There's even a creepy sense of doom and gloom, but in a silly Gilligan's Island way, of course. Even on the island where everyone quote unquote becomes a ghost. Really cool scene. But what happens? There's a night where Gilligan is awakened by the moans and cries of what appears to be a ghost, and he's kind of going around the island and no one believes it. Skipper's like, there can't be a ghost. Ghosts don't exist. Now the girls are even spooked by the noises, and the Howells discover that things are missing. Now they're all suspicious of Gilligan, and of course we know that Gilligan is not the one who is at fault. Now by the next morning, they realize they're just being spooked by a missing sheet. While they're looking for it, Gilligan actually meets the ghost and they converse together. The ghost reveals it wants all of them off the island, but the professor gets suspicious when he sees a boat turn up, and the ghost is telling them to get on the boat and leave the island. So he thinks something sinister must be happening. So he proposes that they turn the tables on the ghost. So the castaways become ghosts themselves by putting sheets over themselves. They put dummies into the boat, and the boat blows up, which means that if they would have been on there, they would have been killed. Now, the ghost, of course, is a Russian guy or a Soviet, who's trying to get them off the island. It was all a ploy, tricking them, trying to scare them off the island. Now what's great is that the ghost man himself hears the castaways that they're haunting quote unquote the island. He goes to investigate and he gets frightened off the island, which is great. And the next day they find the clothes from the dummies that explodes, and Gilligan is terrified when he sees a sea turtle that moves Skipper's shirt without him in it, thinking that it is a ghost in itself. Now, the unnamed Soviet guy, who is essentially the man who plays the ghost in the episode, he's really unnamed. They just call him the Ghost, right? But it's played by Richard Kiel. He is the Canamet in the episode of The Twilight Zone. He is also in Happy Gilmore. He is also Jaws in 007. And so he's a pretty prominent guy, but he actually never speaks his real voice. Yeah, in fact, the show tricked you into thinking that that was him, but that's not. So Richard Kiel speaks in the episode, but you can't hear it because someone else is talking over him that is doing a quote-unquote proper Soviet or Russian accent. And the man he's talking to is a Russian commander who's essentially trying to get everyone off the island. Now, it's interesting because this Russian commander's voice is very similar from an episode Gilligan versus Gilligan. He's also the guy on the radio or the walkie-talkie, or in that case, the spoon that Gilligan was holding, that little Swiss Army knife that had all those abilities. And Henry Corden is the man behind the voice. Now, Henry Corden, I have spoken about him before. He was one of the men who did the voice of Fred Flintstone in the cartoon. He also was on Hogan's Heroes several times. Very prolific actor, and he could make a lot of range of accents, and he could really disguise his voice in many different ways, and here playing an amazing Russian commander. Now, one of the things that we've always asked about Gilligan's Island, I'll answer here, and it's pretty awesome. Everyone asks me, Rick, how come the clothing on the castaways never fades or never gets old, right? How come Gilligan's red shirt is always super bright red throughout 3 years or even more that they were on the island? Well, this is something that we find out in this episode. When they make the dummies, of course, Gilligan, Skipper, Professor, they dress up the dummies in the same clothing that they're wearing, and they're still wearing the clothing. Basically, they're duplicate clothes. So they had similar clothes on the island. In fact, Gilligan had many red shirts, many red pants, the cap, like there were duplicates of pretty much everything, and I think that's awesome. it explains it away. They just were able to get more shirts whenever they wanted to because that's Gilligan's Island, a live action cartoon. I think that's hilarious. Let me know down in the comments below how you think this is possible. How do you think it's possible for them to have all these duplicates? Did they bring them on the boat on this 3-hour tour? Let me know in the comments down below. And lastly, if you're a big fan of Gilligan's Island, you will know the episode Niet, Niet, Not Yet, where 2 Russian cosmonauts, they essentially parachute on the island in their capsule, and they're trying to get the castaways essentially off, or they're trying to beat them to their own punch. Now, they could have said, essentially, that there were people on this island sent over this quote-unquote ghost to get him off, and when that was unsuccessful, later on in Gilligan versus Gilligan in season 3, they made a double of Gilligan. Basically, a spy is made the perfect likeness of Gilligan, trying to get them off, and they fail. So this could be essentially the second part of a 3-part episode, or an episode that continues, or a story that continues, starting with Niet, Niet, Not Yet. This one, Ghost to Go-Go, as well as Gilligan versus Gilligan. Let me know your thoughts as well down below. Are you enjoying watching these shows still to this day, so many years and decades after? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. We'll see you all next time, and don't forget, everyone, be hopeful. A really big thank you to all my Diamond tier patrons: Jerry D, Stacy L, Scott R, Citizen Kane 359, Jennifer P, David D, Kevin K, Sally N, and Vito L. If you want to be on this list or receive exclusives as a great way to support the channel, visit my Patreon description below. Thank you.